Welcome back, everybody. Let's take a look at an exercise for using partial runs to test your workspace. Oh, I didn't send out the right link there. I just pasted twice. There we go. Okay, so now we're going to finish cleaning this up. So we're going to run the workspace all the way up to the end here. Now, one of the things which we'll notice here, if I keep running this, in this data set here, let's see, how many features do I have? And there's 5 of them. I've actually run this out to completion before. I'll run it again. And now I have 10 rows. Okay. So this is when I open it up from the existing workspace, the exercise use multiple readers and writers. One of the things that you have to keep in mind when you're writing out to a database like this is a database by default, when you write data to it, it's going to add data to that database. There's 2 ways that we can handle this. The first we saw on Tuesday, on the day 2 of the course, when we were writing out to a file geodatabase, we want to overwrite the database. So that's one way of dealing with it. But you can end up in a situation with these databases, especially when you're dealing with file-based geodatabase, that someone's put the effort into loading data into it, and maybe you shouldn't be overwriting that data. So what you can do instead is deal with it at the feature type level. Remember, we have parameters at every level of the hierarchy: workspace, readers and writers, in this case, overwrite your database, but we also have feature type, or in this case, a table parameter. In the table, we have our table handling here. I can drop and create. The file will be left alone. If there's other feature types, other tables within that database, they'll be left alone. But I will drop and recreate this particular table. Now, different databases have different levels of support for this. This one here, the geo package, you'll notice that the only real option was drop and create, I believe. I don't believe truncate was one of the options. No, use existing, create if needed, drop and create, that's it. If you're working with file geodatabase, there's more options. One of them is truncate. Truncate leaves the table definition alone, just wipes out everything that's in the table. Drop and create destroys the table entirely and then recreates it. As I mentioned earlier, if you're writing out to a database, chances are someone's put a lot of database design into that table. They probably don't want you to blow it away and recreate it in FME. So truncate would be the proper one to use. So I'll run this again. And when I inspect this, I will have my 5 features. Now, this isn't really necessary for you to do in the exercises. If you end up with multiple features, I wouldn't worry too much about it. So what we need to do now is we're creating polygons, or sorry, we're creating points, aggregates really. We want to create an actual zone from this. To do that, we have this create boundaries here. So I'm going to move everything over, space things out a little bit nicer. So divide the residents, group the residents. We want to create the boundaries at this point here. And we're going to use a hull replacer for that. So here's where my create boundaries will go. Here's my hull replacer. Something you may have noticed when you're dragging around transformers, you end up with that little green triangle in the top left. That's called the drag and insert triangle. If I put that over top of something, it'll connect it up. There we go. Okay, so now when I want to run to this, it'll just do this particular transformer. And let's see what we get. So I have some areas that's created around those points. One of the things that we have to deal with, though, is that these areas overlap. We kind of want separate areas, not areas on top of other areas. So we want to clean that up. That is a little bit involved, but I believe all of that is in, not that one, this one, clean up overlaps. So I'll move around here. So what this is going to do is, first of all, do an area on area overlay. That will create additional polygons here. So these two here will become 3 polygons. There'll be this polygon, the polygon where they overlap, and this polygon. Then we need to decide this polygon here, which polygon should that belong to? The one it should belong to is the one that the most points for that one belong to. So we're going to do a point on area overlayer of the original addresses onto each of these polygons. We'll then figure out which of those polygons. The list histogrammer will tell us how many of those overlaps there are on each area, and then we'll dissolve it based on which one has the most points. So coming out of the spatial sorter, we're going to do this in parallel to this. So this will go here. So I have my areas. Nope, sorry, that's not right. That's my areas. It's my points that I want to come out of there. So points coming out of the spatial sorter. There. Earlier I mentioned that if you have overlaps like this, it's nicer to keep them organized. I'll right click, move that up, just so I don't have that overlap. The areas are coming out of the hull. I don't like this kind of overlap happening, so I'm going to move this over. I'm going to close my visual preview for now so I can see more. So now that's going through the list histogrammer, dissolver, areas. I think I've got that right. I'm going to run just to this to see what I got here. So my area on area overlayer, let's see what that gives us. So I'll inspect my areas here. Remember I said that we have this polygon. Now we have this polygon as well, and the polygon below it. Same thing over here. So we now have multiple polygons. We run that through the point on area overlayer. Now the point on area overlayer here is merging attributes, but it's also creating something called a list. Sam had earlier mentioned yesterday that when you had a country and you added another country attribute, it overwrites it because you can only have one country attribute on a feature. That wasn't 100% true. You can have 2 country attributes, but you have to number them. You'll have country 0, country 1. It's called the list attribute. We have numbered elements for a particular attribute. So that's what this one's doing. So when I look at the area, when I select this one that has an overlap, lists only show up when you inspect the data with the feature inspection or feature information window. So I'll open that up here and drag that off to the side. So here we'll have a list. At least we should. Coming out of the areas, that one there. Unless I mess something up here. Oh, there we are. Point list. So here's the point list, and it has our group ID. So I can see that I have 4 features with a group ID of 4 and a bunch of features with a group ID of 5. So this one here should belong to area 5. Now we have to get that information. That's what the list histogrammer is for. It's going to count up the various values. So the list histogrammer will count all those up. So when I select this here, I have my histogram. The first element of the histogram is the most common one with a value of 5. And the second most common one is number 4. So you can see that there's 4 points in there that belong to zone 4 and 110 that belong to zone 5. So this one should definitely go with number 5. And then in the dissolver, we just dissolve by the first histogram value, histogram element 0. And that will give us a nice, tidy output. There we go. So now each one has its own little area. Now we've done that with the subset of the data. Now we want to run the entire translation. So I'll scroll over, find my sampler transformer. When you delete a transformer in FME, it will try to heal the workspace. When I delete this, it will just connect directly. So watch when I delete the sampler. Now it's connected up. So now when I run this translation, it'll run with all of the data. And what we'll see here is that the spatial sorter, it is a pretty slow transformer. So 58,000 features, this is taking it a while. Okay, so that is exercise. Use partial runs to test your workspace. So please do that exercise and we'll continue at, I believe this is a 15-minute one. Give you a half hour, a bit of a break. Also got to give us time to finish off here. So we're going to continue at 12:30 by the lab clock, and that'll give us a half hour to get through the final section. That is still running, but we're getting close. Here you can also see how features flow through the workspace. And there we go. And there's our final output. Okay.